Okay, Alyssa, we are going now to almost everybody's favorite segment of our young podcast, Boss Like a Mother.
That music, that's what makes it.
I think that's why it's everybody's favorite segment, and that is not wrong. If you're new to our show, folks, the Boss Like a Mother segment is where Alyssa and I, sort of in our daily lives as parents, continue to encounter parallels between being parents and leading people and teams. And so, Alyssa, I know you reached out ahead of our recording today and said, "Hey, Joe, I've got a boss like a mother." And so I turned the floor over to you.
Thanks, Joe. So, this was a story that occurred early on in the pandemic. It's April of last year. And I like to summarize it by saying, as Brene Brown puts forth, you have to rumble with vulnerability daily. Well, I took a rumble with vulnerability in the mommy space, and I'm still not sure who won the battle.
Oh, no.
It was a rumble for sure. So let me set the stage here for you. I, am an introvert. And in the mommying space, you can take that times like 1,000. Okay. In the professional space, I can be out there because I can be on a podcast, right? I can put on the show, but that's really hard to do, at least in my experience as a mom. So I decided that I was experiencing this kind of loneliness or this detachment from those kind of routine social interactions that I was used to having, right? The pickup or the drop off at school, the seeing folks out and about, the playgrounds and what have you. And so I decided I was going to host a virtual happy hour. And it wasn't even going to be a whole hour. I was holding the mother of all happy half hour. 30 minutes. That's what I could commit to. That's as much as my vulnerability would stretch for. All right. So I devised this list. I had all of these people written down. I made a list of all the moms, and then I kind of grouped them by age of their kids, right? So that I could pocket, who I should invite into this particular group. So I sent the following message. I know this is last minute, and that's actually on purpose. Because if you're anything like me, you can't commit to anything for yourself, your own well-being, let alone RSVP, plan, and then you will talk yourself right out of showing up. So I'm trying to make this real easy for us introverts who can usually get our fill of socialization by weekly grocery shopping and drop off and pick up at schools, or otherwise momming it up on the regular. Since zero of that is happening, and we mothers are charged with still being awesome during a global pandemic, you need to report for the mother of all half happy hours. You are guaranteed to know at least one other person on the call, and then I go on to give all the great details, right? So this was about 20 people that I sent this invite out to. And what I experienced, I decided to document. And I documented in the form of journal writing.
Okay.
So I'll set the stage, the appointed time. It's 7 p.m. on a Friday or a Saturday. I can't remember exactly which, right? And I've got my nice whiskey and ginger beer cocktail mix. I've got some music teed up playing in the background. I've got my Zoom all set up. It's great. I'm vibing. I'm like, okay, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Nothing happens.
Oh, no.
So my happy hour began at 7 p.m. At 7:15, I write the following.
Oh, no.
No one has shown up. I'm reaping what I've sowed socially. Nothing. Is this the worst that exists in vulnerability? I answer, quite possibly, maybe. Can I deal with it? I respond, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm surviving it. I'm dealing. How do I feel? At first, despair.
Oh my.
Right? But now I'm pretty proud of me. I'm 15 minutes into this. I put myself out there.
Yes.
And now I ask myself the key question that I think is where the magic happens, right? Which is, what am I learning from this? And I wrote, acting on my intuition, even when the outcome is not as expected, is worthwhile. It proves to me, myself, and I life's lessons and the universe's messages. My intuition is not an absolute answer. It is a compass that guides me in a direction towards the universe's messages. Yes, there's a pain in my gut. Maybe it's the whiskey. Maybe it's hurt. Probably the hurt. But I can feel hurt without having to allow it to wound me.
Wow.
And so at 7:25, I write, will my silent prayer that no one bears witness to my shame be answered? Perhaps loneliness is a symptom of moving away from my true self-awareness. I must reject the idea that external connection is more important, more valuable than a connection to myself.
And in the moment when you said to yourself, will I be able to keep this to myself? You are now on a podcast sharing it with the world, which, as I've said to you many times before, thank you for your willingness to share in that way. Why? As this was clearly something that, I mean, because let's be honest, 99 out of 100 people would not go as deep as you went, even in the moment of this, in a journal and tear it apart, right? 99 out of 100 people go, this sucks. People suck. This makes me feel like I suck. I'm going to drink 4 of these whiskeys and never talk to these people again. So
don't get me wrong.
Are you? Yeah.
Okay. Some of that occurred in my head. Okay. But why I'm sharing? Because I think that it illustrates the necessity of vulnerability for me in the mommying space, for you in the leadership space out there, boss heroes. It is necessary, and it might be painful as hell, but it's worth doing because there is something to be learned. And if you can lean into what can this tell me? What can this teach me? And being open to receiving that lesson, I think that's where growth comes from. So I share my shame. I share that vulnerability, and I'm taking it to the next level. And I'm sharing it with our audience today in hopes that it serves someone else and gives them the confidence that they need to be more vulnerable, because it's a powerful space to be in.
Well, and I hope you never spend another moment feeling any shame related to that experience. One, because there is no shame in taking a risk and putting yourself out there. And there is absolutely no shame. There's quite a lot of grace in turning to a place such as your journal, turning inward and trying to cope with it in a really healthy way. And again, 99 out of 100 people don't do that. And so even if our boss heroes who are listening to this, when they have an experience like this where something maybe doesn't go their way, even if they don't go to the journal and pull it apart and try to unpack it and understand it like you did. And there's absolutely value in doing that. And I think that actually it makes people more resilient and it makes them more emotionally intelligent. But if that's not your way, that's okay. I think the first lesson here is you still got to take a risk. You still got to put yourself out there. And it's not always going to go the way you want. And sometimes there's going to be 19 kinds of suckitude afterwards because it didn't. But you can't fly if you don't jump.
Yes, all of that. Thank you.
Well, I too have a boss like a mother story. By the way, boss like a mother also includes boss like a father, but that's too long of a title. So it's boss like a mother. There's really no reason to play the music twice other than I really like it. And so
agreed. Yes.
It's interesting that we both had a boss like a mother segment in the same week. That doesn't happen very often, but mine does not carry with it the intensity of yours. But
that's okay. Probably our audience is like, all right, dial it back a notch, Alyssa. Good Lord.
They're all weeping in the corner after running on their treadmills like, oh, poor Alyssa.
Don't shed a tear for me, folks. Don't shed a tear for me. I'm good.
Well, recently my two oldest kids, who are in 2nd and 4th grade respectively, brought their report cards home. And as a real quick backdrop, obviously on March 13th last year, they came home from school. They did not go back to in-person school until much later this fall. It was 2 days a week, and then now they're back 5 days a week, and with a lot of COVID protocols. But without fail, since the moment they went to school and through this latest report card, they have never gotten anything other than straight A's. And so we are incredibly proud of them. They, in general, like school, and they are, in general, very good students. And so when they brought their report cards home recently, I had come home a little bit late from work. We were at the dinner table. Oh, we got the report cards. Oh, and it was expected. It was. I know what your grades are before the report card comes home because I'm trying to, be involved. And it was a very brief conversation. And I was like, oh, I'm really proud of you and great job. And, that's amazing. And it's not amazing that you got straight A's. I mean, that is amazing, but it's amazing that you put forth the effort that resulted in straight A's. That's what I care about. And I even intentionally said to both of my kids, I want you to know that I'm never going to be mad if you get a B as long as you tried your best. Right? Because sometimes our best gives us a B, and that's going to just have to be okay. My daughter needs to hear that especially because last year she was getting to a place where it wasn't coming so easily for her, and some quizzes and tests were coming home with some wrong answers on them, and she was really beating herself up about it. But I went to bed that night and the next morning, and I woke up the next morning. I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I just kept feeling like I didn't shine a light on the right thing in that conversation. I didn't feel like I made enough of a fuss about the right thing. These kids are bringing home straight A's for now my daughter for 5 years, my son for 3 of those years. And I just kind of had that moment where it was like, it's because you didn't shine a light on how much they care about it. They care about the excellence. Right? This idea that I made a fuss that, okay, you got straight A's and that's great. And you should always give your best effort. And I'm really proud of you. And that's great. But I kind of felt like what I really wished I had done was stop and say, I'm really proud of you for how much you care about putting forth a good effort. You're not putting forth a good effort just because that's what we want you to do. You genuinely are dedicated to it. And that's what I want to nurture. And so, I tried to be intentional about that with them to circle back to them on it the next day. But it got me thinking about leaders. And one of the things that I train around a lot in the workplace is the different levels of engagement that employees have. And we know that everybody listening to this podcast has some rockstar, superstar employees on their team. And we sometimes forget that we need to make a fuss about them. We have to be careful that we don't take them for granted. And so I saw a parallel between the conversation that I wanted to make sure I had with my kids to praise their caring, to praise their dedication to the excellence, and that being the same kind of conversation we need to have with our high achievers. We need to pull them aside and say, I probably don't say it enough because you always do an amazing job, but I want to thank you because I know how much you care about doing a good job, and I will never take that for granted. So that's my boss like a mother reflection.
Great parallels again to the parenting and the leading. I think that's amazing. And it completely puts a beautiful bow on all the topics that we've covered today.
Well, then one more time, thanks for listening to Boss Like a Mother,